Welcome back. Well, imagine a world where your car drops you off and then goes and parks itself. That's just one of the exciting possibilities of driverless cars. And in places like Silicon Valley, they're increasingly becoming a reality. In the US, Google has been pioneering driverless cars, California recently becoming the third state to allow them on their roads. So what are the implications for cities and companies? And how far away are they really? Well, Futurist Craig Rispin joining us right now in the studio to give us the details. Craig, thanks for coming on today. Google, as I said, are the ones that seem to really be driving driverless cars, excuse the pun there. Where are they up to with this now?
Well, they've got a whole fleet of cars on the road driving Google employees to and from work in California. And recently, the update on the news is another state is going to approve driverless cars. New Jersey's coming next. So you're going to see state by state, it's going to be approved. But we don't have hundreds of cars yet, but we'll get there very quickly.
So it's still early days yet, and my understanding is that the technology and the applications are quite limited.
Well, you'd be surprised, because you'll see the offshoots of these driverless technology are making it into everyday cars right now. So you've seen cars that can park themselves, and you've seen cars that can do this automated where they won't run into something. That's a safety feature. And one of my clients is Volvo, and they claim that they will have a completely accident-free car in 7 years.
That's a pretty big claim to make, but I think a lot of people will be interested in a future of no parking tickets as well. If these cars can park themselves, what are some of the other possibilities here?
Well, there are all sorts of possibilities. Let's think about the winners if you have, a city full of driverless cars. First of all, traffic wouldn't be an issue. We wouldn't have stoplights at intersections because the cars would all avoid themselves. So have you ever seen those mad scenes in some cities like Rome where they're zipping around, or in India and it just looks like madhouse, but it's actually going to be completely automated and completely safe. So disabled Australians, older Australians, their pocketbooks, because their liability will transfer from their back pocket to the actual manufacturer, because it won't be your fault if you run into something.
Well, that's an interesting issue, but whoever can solve the traffic problems in India, good luck to them. But let me talk about traffic and accidents as well, because the idea here is related to the Internet of Things. Everything will be interconnected, there will be sensors. So cars will be talking to traffic lights and also to other vehicles as well.
That's right. And so it's mapping right now with a technology called LiDAR. So the Google car has this tower on top, you've probably seen it, and that tower is mapping millions and millions of data points. They actually show like a data cloud of what's happening in real time around them. But right now that costs $65,000. But a Romanian student just won an Intel prize, a $75,000 prize, because he came up with a system that's not quite as good as Google's, but he thinks he can do it on a $4,000 laptop.
How safe are these particular cars when it comes to dealing with things around them? Because when you're driving, a lot happens. Yeah. Cars come in, pedestrians come in, dogs cross the road, children come out racing after balls. Can these cars react to those kinds of incidents?
They can, absolutely. And I first got to ride in one of these cars in 2009. And when I got out, the Googlers said, hey, it was just in an enclosed parking lot at the time because they weren't approved to go on the road yet. And they said, hey, Craig, just jump in front of the car as it's driving around. I said, no, you go first. But I did jump in front, and it stopped. And I put my faith in technology. But what a lot of people don't realize is we're doing this all the time. It will be much safer because it's human error that kills 1.24 million people because of traffic accidents per year. This is according to the World Health Organization. Right. If we moved all to automated cars, we could eliminate 1 million deaths a year.
Who's responsible if you have an accident? The car itself, the driver who's sitting there not driving it, or the person that makes the software?
Yeah, well, if you look at the example from the airline industry, if something goes wrong with a plane and there's an accident, it's actually the manufacturer that's liable. It's not actually the pilot, unless it was pilot error. Right. So this is where we're going to see a big shift. And I know Insurance Australia is one of my clients, and they were talking about what is this future going to look like, where we don't have individuals that have the liability, but the manufacturers do.
Right. How far away are we really, Craig, from seeing this in terms of mass adoption? When am I going to be at the point where I can just sit in the back of my car and read the paper and be driven to work?
Well, if you could afford $65,000 upgrade to your car today, you could have it today, although in Australia we don't have the laws that allow them on the road. But these cars are there today. We have an entire student population that have been trained how to use them. one course was offered online and 100,000 students turned up. And in 8 weeks, they learned how to make their own autonomous vehicle. So they're doing it with models right now, but that could be scaled up. So really now it's just a cost issue. But we know in technology, we have Moore's Law. This is a Bayes Moore's Law. So you think in 10 years' time, that system should be about $100. So if it's about $100 in 10 years' time, would you pay for the upgrade?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So in 10 years' time, your prediction is these kind of cars will be fairly common on the roads?
Very common, very common. I think the consumer sentiment about this, they've done testing in all sorts of countries saying, well, do you think that you would like to turn over control to a robot in your car? And, it's well over 50%. In some countries, it's 95%. And anybody who flies in Australia, they probably don't realize that, there's a lot of planes that land themselves through autonomous control.
Yes, that scared me quite a lot when I heard about that, putting that much faith into a computer. Now, the Centre for Automotive Research says these cars won't appear in a vacuum. They'll be accompanied by robots. And hopefully on that note, we can bring up a video of Domino's Pizza. They uploaded the video to YouTube showing drones delivering pizza to people in the UK. So you can see there, Craig, that particular drone is flying over some houses in the UK to drop off some pizza. Are we going to see things like this?
Absolutely. So the courier business will be impacted by this. The parking industry will be impacted by this. The taxi and hire car industry will be impacted by this. But we can see this in the future. It's quite obvious. I'm buying an open source online kit that has 4 little propellers you can attach to anything, a pizza, a Frisbee, anything. And, it's $100 for this sort of thing. But there's no laws about this yet.
Okay, Craig, we do have to leave it there. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
And on that note, Domino's say that's just a marketing video and there's no plans to use drones to deliver pizzas anytime soon. Well, that's all we have time for on this week's edition of Technology Behind Business. You can watch the show again on our website, skynews.com.au. You can follow me on Twitter as well. I'm Nigel Freitas. Thanks for joining us.